It's time for the podcast, which is all about the world of marketing on television through TV shopping networks and infomercials. Are we on the air? I'm your host, Shawn Wilsey, and for over 29 years, I've hosted shows on cable shopping networks, generating hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, and now I want to be your guide into this world, explaining how it works, why it works, what doesn't work, and introduce you to the people who are making it the success that it is today. And therein lies the key for our second show now with Manuela Marcheggiani. If you have not listened to the first, please go back, pick up that first show, because we learned a lot about the early days of Isomers. Manuela is the co-founder and CEO of Isomers Skin Care and Isomers Laboratories, one of the longest-running products on the ShopHQ network, formerly known as Evine and Shop NBC, and under many other names as well. Now, before we get into this interview, because I want to talk about what makes a good host, I want to talk about what makes a good guest and Isomers success, I have to begin by telling a personal story about you and about times working with Manuela, because it is one of my favorite stories that I can share about knowing Manuela personally and working with her. Because you mentioned your boy, and I've worked with Manuela back in the day through 2 pregnancies, and I don't remember the first. Manuela almost did a spit take, friends. Just that was a visual. And she came out to do one of our shows, and she was pregnant. I mean, capital letter P, pregnant. And
couldn't see my shoes. Couldn't see my feet. I was so big. Yeah.
I thought, what the hell is this woman doing here? And I looked at her and what did I say? Something effective. Are you having that baby now? Or
yeah. And then I remember that. I still remember that because you were just, Shawn, honestly, you were mortified. You were so terrified that I was going to have the baby. And I was like moving around and bouncing up and down. You're like, oh my God, don't move. Like,
stop that. Yes. Just,
you're going to pop. Yeah. And you know what's really funny about that? That I remember it was November. I wasn't due until April. That shows you how big I was.
Oh my God.
And so prematurely. That was my second one. But I was like, good thing there was double doors in the studio. I mean, I was just so big. But you know, we had a great time, but we had really good, and it was always about, you know, the information, the stories, what's it good for? What's it going to do? Why is this interesting? You know, what problem does it solve?
Yeah.
You know, and it always felt good because it was always real.
Yeah.
Like we're sharing this like it happened yesterday because it was so real. We don't have to go back and make it up. It actually happened just like that, you know.
You know, people at the network I'm at now are always surprised when I talk about how many skincare shows I used to do, because I worked with Manuela a lot. You mentioned Skip Connolly. I know you worked with him a lot. Did you do some Bill Fahey shows too? I can't remember, but I think you did. Yeah. So men can sell skincare. If you're a good host, you can sell anything. What are the traits you see in the good hosts that you work with?
I think good hosts are present. I think that they're energized. They truly care. And the good hosts really look at things from, they really look at things from the audience's side. I think a really good host helps to answer or paint a picture that really will help somebody with a lot of questions be satisfied. And they do it in such a very good way because they're able to bring out the best in my story or my presentation, and keep in mind what the audience actually needs to hear, like what's important. It's not just about the item number and the price, or that it's back again after, you know, whatever. I think it's more about putting people in situations or helping them to visualize at the moment how this can work for them and where it fits into their life. And I think a good host does that really well.
And conversely, you know, what makes a good guest? Marv Siegel said, you're the best that he is seen.
Thank you.
You know, what in general makes a good guest on a television shopping show?
I think what makes a good guest, one is I always remember I'm a guest. It's not my show. That's really important. So you're in somebody's house, right? We're having a conversation. So I'm not there to take over. I'm only there to, and I feel like I'm there to answer questions or to provide a service. So that's one. The other thing that makes a good guest is knowing your product inside out and backwards, so that people can ask you anything and everything, so that you can provide them with the best quality information and opportunity. And also, I think that's what, for me, I guess I'm cheating in a way, because I'm also the cook, right? Yeah. I happen to be the inventor. So I think being an actual inventor makes you a good guest. I think actually somebody who has an issue and solves it and then creates it and gives it out, I think is the best guest. But also you have to be able to, I think I'm very fortunate because I see in pictures and then I try to describe what I see. And I think that helps people, because I take the science part and I break it down. And I think that also makes a good guest. So a good guest is a good storyteller, but not a bullshitter.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you have outlived, at least at the network you're at now, ShopHQ, from my count, just about every other vendor that has come through. I think you're the longest running vendor there, aren't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's maybe one or two a little bit longer than me, but yeah.
But
yeah. And truly, it's not. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, but certainly for skincare, you absolutely are. I mean, a lot have come and gone in the time that you've been there. So what is the secret for your success? Why are you outliving all these other guests and vendors who have come and gone?
I think I think the integrity. I think the Isomer is an integrity molecule, and I think everything we do has integrity. So we have integrity. We're not bigger than the game. We know we don't try to be bigger than the game. We don't try to, run before we can walk. And I think that we've remained true to what we wanted to do, which was to educate and empower and to offer options to people to help themselves. And so what we do on the network is we're vertically integrated, so we don't have to rely on outside sources for our formulas. We make our own formulas, do our own manufacturing. So I think a lot of other people, they take a Me Too product, they slap their name on it, they come up with a story, and it works for a little while, but then the holes just get bigger and bigger, and they just can't float it for that long.
I always take, I don't want to say offense, but I don't like when people say, well, you're in sales. I mean, yes, we're in sales, but we're in advertising. We're in marketing. And we have laws that we have to abide by, that someone in sales works at Macy's or Eaton's. Do they still have Eaton's in Canada, or are they gone?
I think they're gone.
Okay.
Yeah, they're gone.
But that to me is a sales.
But the Eaton Center is still there.
I love that place, by the way. Eaton Center, downtown Toronto. That is a fantastic place.
That's right.
Because we have laws that we have to abide by. I mean, what kind of a juggling act is that for you, especially with skincare? Because your mind has to be constantly running as you're on air about what you're saying. You've got no script.
I don't use a script. So a lot of people do use scripts, which keeps them, they have a formula and they say, we're going to say these things, or these are our feature, it's the feature and benefit thing. But I always tell the story, but I had to learn the laws very, very quickly because of the FTC and, the Trade Commission and what you can say. And I had to learn very quickly that we are on TV shopping. We were so highly regulated, more so than a department store, or you go to your esthetician, or you go to a little shop, or you meet, somebody on the side. They can tell you everything and anything. So they can sell you, and, the guy at the car salesman on a lot, for example, it's just you two can say whatever he wants. The car is going to make you sexier and taller and, improve your IQ. Okay. But when you're on TV, we had to be vanilla. We had to be very careful with, and this is the part that used to be really difficult, Shawn, was that they used to say, it doesn't matter. It mattered what you were saying, but what was more important than what I was saying was, what did the audience hear? What did they come away with? Because even though you didn't actually say something, if they understood it in a way that crossed the line, I was still responsible for that.
Right.
So that made it very difficult. So a lot of times, and we would actually use it as a feature, we under promise. So we'd say very vanilla and then overperform. And I think that also helped with the integrity. We didn't have to promise a lot. We'd say, I'm only going to tell you what this ingredient does and its potential. And here's a before and after of what has actually happened. And here are the measurements. Like, I'm just giving you that. But when you go home, you don't even have to know any of this. The formula is done so well that you're just going to use it and it knows what to do. And I think because our product performed at a very high level, that also allowed us to, I mean, we've been told many times in the industry. And as you know, we've been in the industry for a very long time, but we've been told that every hour of every day our product is selling. We've also been told that we have the highest repeat customer with the most repetition and also the loyalty factor. So we're always gaining. So even when they did like subscription or when a customer would, because many times people only buy once or twice at a network and then they move on.
Very true. That's true.
Right?
Yep.
And with Isomers, we would have, people would buy at minimum 4 to 6 times a year per. So it was very rare for us to have a one-shot customer. And then and still to this day, we have people that have been with us since day one.
Yeah.
And they still, are buying monthly or every other month, and they're buying essentials, and they've gotten older and they have multi-generation. But again, because we fit that niche of science and integrity and product, I mean, it's funny because maybe in the beginning, TV shopping was seen as, I remember being told this. Why don't you get a legitimate job? Why don't you use a legitimate distribution?
Of course. Sure.
And I was like, that's so rude.
Yeah. All
right. And you don't know what I'm doing. You obviously haven't watched one of the shows or presentations, because I've come from, so much integrity. Like I wasn't taking this as like snake oily. And then when Sephora actually stepped in and started doing TV shopping, then they were said, oh, now you're legitimate.
Yeah.
No, I was legitimate all the time. You didn't know, but it was like Mount Everest. What's the tallest mountain? It was always Mount Everest. Even if you hadn't discovered it, it was still the tallest. Right.
Yeah.
And so Isomers, we still had integrity even before Sephora showed up. Right. Yeah. We didn't need them to legitimize the business.
Yeah. How many of your formulations would you guess, I might be putting you on the spot for a number, are the same now as they were 20-some years ago? Because you mentioned some of the original products that are still around.
Yep.
Do you still have a lot of those that are still around and haven't changed?
I have actually, interestingly enough, there are, I think, 4 or 5 that are almost identical that have not changed. The only thing that changed, because again, the R Pure was based on a genistein isolate using supercritical fluid extraction. So it was done, and still to this day, genistein is known for what, we were kind of first doing that. And then with the Fast Lift eye serum, we did non-oil based eye serums. We did a serum technology using algae and glycosaminoglycan. Now everybody's talking about hyaluronic acid and oil-free. We were doing that.
Yeah. And
then our copper, we created copper peptides. So that was us as well. And then those are 3. And then ectoin, which is bacteria that's billions of years old. Yeah. So the 3, 4 are still the same.
I remember vividly the first time you and I ever did a show with the plant stem cell based technology in a product. And that was just, boom, mind blown that we were doing this kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Stem Genesis. Yeah. Yeah. And that was actually taking, stem cells. So this is the day where that was the other thing, educating people about becoming. So at that time when we launched Stem Genesis and we used plant stem cell, people were still using placental or animal product. And we were like, not ethical, guys. Let's move forward. And then we showed a different world and with a phytocell technology, and that did really, really well. But we had to explain about why do you need a stem cell? What makes it so important? Right. Like people will, without scaring people and just realizing, hey, and do they still have DVD discs or CD discs? But basically, I used to say, that's how long ago, right? I used to say, it's an unprogrammed disc. You can put whatever you want on it. That's the power of a stem cell. So it's clean, and its only job is to address your needs. I tried to explain that science to people. Yeah. And I remember that's what we did.
I want to change gears just a little bit. And I want to talk more about just the business aspect of things for you, because you mentioned having a family. You mentioned living in Toronto. You have to fly to Minneapolis to do these shows. COVID has changed things, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. How did you manage juggling that fine line between, I want to have a family, I have a laboratory in Toronto, I have to fly to Minneapolis to do these shows? I mean, how did you juggle all of that?
Teamwork. I juggled it with teamwork. Darish and I were really good partners that way. We had arranged it in a way that at first our goal was, we were living with my parents. And so I could leave the babies in their bed, and I could take off and go to Minneapolis or go to Italy or go to where I had to go to do my shows, and then fly back a couple of days later. And they still would have been in the comfort of their family. They wouldn't have been disrupted, right? That's when they got a little bit bigger. When they were really, really little, I used to just bring them with me, and we used to have jolly jumpers. I don't know if you remember that, but we used to have jolly jumpers in the studio.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Or between shows, I would nurse them, and then Darish would walk around holding them, and they would scream the entire time I was on air. And as soon as I'd come off air, they'd fall asleep. Right. That would happen. But it's always been teamwork, and it's always been about organization and planning, and basically knowing, okay, we're going to come down and we're going to do those shows. And then when I get home, I'm going to be mom, and then I got to be CEO, and then I got to be, chief bottle washer. And then I got to be, and it was just, I think it's because it was our own, and it is truly our own. I had also that power of flexibility, but I had a family, no man's an island, right? You need family. You need people to support you. Mm-hmm. And we were supporting each other with a common goal.
We mentioned COVID a couple times. How did COVID change how you do business, and how did it change your business?
I think COVID was, I'm going to stop, probably people are going to hate me, but COVID was amazing in the sense that COVID has, I actually liked, okay, and this sounds weird, but Shawn, you know me, that I say things in a way that it probably sounds like, what do you mean?
Right,
but
right.
let me finish. But
okay.
I kind of like COVID because, all right, so I'm Italian, and I'm Italian Canadian, and I'm married and Catholic, and I married an Iranian Muslim, right?
Right.
So people would think, well, that's difficult to do, right? Because there's two very different cultures, and then and he's from another country, and so we have all that. Then we have the different religions. To me, it was always, this was a really great thing because it would make my world and his world bigger, because I would have my Italian community, and then I would also have then the Iranian Muslim community. You know what I mean? Like now my world is also this, like it's adding to my experience. Well, the reality of that, I mean, that's my idealistic brain, but the reality of that was that I kind of sometimes didn't fit in my world nor his. Right? Not in a bad way. It's just, there was just not enough stories or something. So when we had children, it was kind of like because I'm respecting his world and respecting mine, we didn't really have a unifier. So I used to always be in awe of my Jewish friends who they always had Seder, or they always had these Jewish holidays, and they had something that wrapped around them and united them, right? They had this place, this home, And I think COVID made the entire world a home. We all now have a shared experience.
I like that. Yeah.
We all now have something that unifies us. Our children understand it. Doesn't matter what background they're from. My Iranian family understands it. My Italian family understands it. The elders understand it. My Jewish. So it is by unifier. So for me, COVID was great that way because it allowed us all to, we didn't go to war, because a lot of times the war used to be a unifier. So I see it as a unifier. The other thing it did is it prevented us from traveling. We were allowed to stay open because we were an essential lab and we made sanitizer, but we only did it for public service. We never did it to make money. That was something that we decided, even though there were some other labs in the city and around us, they were, selling a little bottle for $20 or $50 or, just disgusting. I mean, personally, that's just not my thing. Like, we make eye serum and fit cleansers. I don't want to, and that's what I specialize in. The fact that the world has gone to, this point, we opened up our lab and we made sanitizer, and we lost money on it. I mean, in the sense of, we bought the ingredients and then we gave them out to hospitals and we gave them out to people. We were just so happy that we could come into our lab and that we wouldn't go crazy at home.
Yeah.
We felt useful and we felt beneficial, and we wanted to be part of the solution. So that was the best way to be part of the solution, was to offer healthcare workers or seniors, whoever needed it, some, hand sanitizer, some peace of mind, Yeah. The other thing that it allowed us to do was to then broadcast from our laboratory, which was great. So we could still communicate.
Yeah.
And the other thing was it forced us to be less reliant on going to the network. We started looking at different things we could do and different things we could do better. So because we didn't have the opportunity to go to the network, we started our YouTube channel. I hired 2 or 3 university students who were crawling the walls. They want to come and start creating because of COVID. And so we opened up our Instagram, we opened up our TikTok, we opened up our YouTube, and we started doing the same value that we did 30 years ago, but now in usable pieces. And we're creating a library, a resource. So COVID allowed me to say, wait a minute, what am I waiting for? Let's create this library. Let's do this.
Well, and unfortunately, we are out of time for this episode. We will conclude with Manuela on the next show, where we will talk about the future, where we think the future might be for this industry, and talk about social media and its importance. And by the way, while we're on that subject, I hope Twitter, Facebook, you will follow me. Easy to find, Shawn Wilsie, my full name, ShawnWilsie. Also, you can find me on Instagram, a little bit simpler, Wilsie, SWILSIE. Thank you for downloading this edition of our We on the Air. This has been a King Bobby production.
Yes, I know, Travis. That's why we give such bargains.